Should I pick up a picture so we can do that? All right. Thank you. All right. Good evening, wherever you are joining us from. We're glad to have you, and yeah, an exciting day it is that we are having today, and an exciting topic, I must say. And I pray and hope that you'll be blessed, and that we are going to be blessed together by the grace of God. So we are talking about something different today, something unique. We are diving into marriage. Now, if you're not married, it doesn't mean that this is not for you, because some of the things we are going to talk about are issues that should actually be considered even before the marriage union takes place. So we are just going to deal with things generally, and we pray and hope that this will be of help, this will be of a blessing to those that are married, to those that are newly married, and those that are about to get married. So let us know where you are watching us from, and just a reminder that we are live both on Facebook and on YouTube. So you do well to just follow through in all those places. Okay, so I'm seeing that the YouTube seems to have a little bit of a challenge, but I hope that we can fix it as we go. All right, so let's just get in. The topic says that we want to talk about things that a modern day marriage must seriously consider. A modern day marriage that like a tradition, and so we follow through all along, generation after generation, and this keeps on going. But I believe that with time, these things, some of the things they change, some of the things they begin to fall out, some of the things they need adjusting, some of the things they need to be worked on. Okay, now
it's more like you're just contextualizing, isn't it?
Yes.
So the principles might remain the same, but
yeah,
they have to be within the context because the dynamics of life then and now are changing. Marriage is marriage. Before, now it's going to be marriage. But the dynamics of life, economics, survival are changing. And so the principle can be held on to, but how do we contextualize? Because if we do not contextualize, we cannot bring the dynamics of a different generation into a different generation.
yes.
It just fails to fit in. So you can be standing by something good, but it's just not working because the time is not permitting it to work like that.
Yes. Yes. So that's why there is an emphasis on marriage, meaning that some of the things we are going to talk about today, some of the things we are going to discuss, might seem a bit variant with what marriage used to be, let's say 20, 25 years ago. Okay. What marriage used to be maybe 15 years ago. So those that have been married for longer, they might hear some of these things and say, what is happening? But I've come to learn that in life, if you do not learn to contextualize, both in terms of time and culture, you find yourself in a conflict that you cannot, that number one, you do not know how to deal with, but number two, you do not know how to survive through it. So it ends up destroying you. It ends up crushing you because there are dynamics that will be fighting you, and yet you do not know that where the fight is coming from. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And so you find yourself in a constant battle. Okay, you find yourself in a constant battle. Okay, so we have a little visitor in the studio. We hope that he will not be a biggest disturbance. All right, so we need to learn to context. So what we are dealing with today about marriage, we are dealing with issues of learning to contextualize, learning to live within the time, maintaining the same principles of marriage, maintaining marriage to be strong as it should be, but learning to live within the times so that things can continue to work out. Okay.
So we what provoked this is we usually get questions from sometimes, being a pastor, sometimes it will just be marital conflict, marital challenges that people come with, and you begin to see a common pattern. And then sometimes people have these questions. An individual has that one, an individual has that one, and when you really look at them, you get to see a common pattern. So we just thought we can address this together, not because it all came from the same person, but really you can see that the call of these questions and queries is the same. And with marriage, of course, to each their own. There's that perspective. It works differently for different people because there are personalities involved, and there are different environments. We're all a product of our environment, so we're coming from different environments, and so
different upbringings.
And so as we come together, we have slightly varying perspectives of how things are done, and depending on the combination that you are with your spouse, your marriage may work differently, But the truth is, there is for example, every culture has a way of preparing its newlyweds.
Yes.
And for example, the Zambian culture, we have a way of counseling and preparing the newlyweds in a traditional way that is culturally acceptable in our time. And I don't know if I should say, unfortunately, in these times today, a lot of young people have started to take that counseling not as a life training, but they've begun to take it as a formality that just has to be done because, well, this is the way marriage works. So everybody's going through the Fimbusa process, everybody's going through the premarital counseling. But the question is, how many people are actually living by this counseling? And sometimes I know that sounds negative. It sounds like, well, they are not learning. They are adamant. But no, the truth is, the typical traditional way of marriage can't work for everybody. Why? Because the dynamics of life have changed. The traditional counseling favors, if you really look at it from the call, it favors a culture that is in the traditional African setting. Which today is not the same in the cities, isn't it? So in the traditional setting, for example, you have a father who hunts and fishes and does farming to provide for his family. And you have a wife who is producing children and doing the home training for the children. And so this wife is basically cooking, doing the chores, and saving the home. And you've got children that are helping the father to provide. And when these two parents grow old, their children take care of them. Now, when you look at life today, that is not the same perspective we're seeing.
Yeah.
So now we've got couples that want to progress, they want to settle financially. We've got couples that are investing business-wise, and we've got women who are not just specialized in the kitchen or in the bedroom anymore. They are career women. And sometimes you can say, no, it's the women that are protesting, but no, it's not the women. There are men today who do not want to marry just a passive dormant woman. They want a career woman, they want an educated woman, they want an exposed woman, they want a working class woman. So if you are going to marry a working class woman, of course the dynamics are different then. You cannot expect her to totally function the way that traditionally viewed woman would be perceived as just being specialized in cooking, specialized at home duties, because she's going to go for work like you 5 to 5. You're going to work to provide. She's also equally going. You want to advance in the olden times. It will be in our village settings, in our home settings. There is no rent, but now the husband has to pay rent. And if you're going to talk about investing, there's so much more that needs to be put in. And putting all that burden on a man, that's partly, I'm going to say this, I know it's controversial, but it's true. Those couples that were graduating from the olden times into the modern times that didn't realize, did you notice that there was a point where the men just used to drop of stress, or he just dropped of a stroke and died, and the wife remained young and the children, and they got the benefits?
Actually, there was a saying, I can see Reverend John Banda there. We were talking because back home he's my neighbor, so we were talking that why is it that every man after they
build their house,
they
die?
House, he dies.
He doesn't even live in there.
And culture and traditional, and you know the setup. People would think, no, maybe it's witchcraft,
the wife,
and
maybe
but
cute.
Basically it was
stress.
An issue of stress. So you have one person earning income to feed, sustain, and invest.
And yet, they have not realized that the dynamics have changed.
Yes.
In the olden times in the village, you just build. Traditionally, there's no cement, there's no need for these builders, there's no need to buy the land, it is yours. But then you come to town, you have to buy this land that is, 17 times your salary, and now do the cement and all the fixtures. And yet, you have to keep feeding a wife who is adding nothing to your life.
Not only in the village, but also the economic dynamics.
Yeah.
What the economy used to be back then and what the economy is now is very different. Okay, so some years back, one person's income was enough. Okay, but in the economies of today, world over,
regardless
actually,
of where you are,
not just in Africa. I mean, we are in this part of the world.
Actually, here in Europe, it's actually worse than in Africa. It's worse.
It's worse that one income cannot actually sustain
a family.
Okay, yeah. So there are those dynamics that change. So that's why the first thing that we want to talk about from conversations we've had with other couples, counseling and everything else. And please, I want to mention that as you are watching, put in your comments down there, your contribution, we'll read them, your questions. If you have any questions, put them down there and we are going to try and tackle them. So the number one thing, based on this background that we have laid, the number one thing we want to talk about is the fact that as a couple, you have to decide how you are going to live in your marriage. In today's, some years
even
back,
before you are a couple, you as an individual, especially as a man, I'll start with the men, because I find that's where the challenge starts. Mostly the women, especially in our cultural setting as Zambians, we are not really having this challenge of who am I and what. We are being influenced, of course, with the gender equality and what, which has extremes to it, but especially the men. Before you even begin to date somebody, when you begin to think marriage, you need to think, what do I want? And you need to be honest with yourself without external influence. Because I would say that because there's a lot of men that when you look at the demands they have of a wife, then what they really need is a traditional wife who's just going to stay home, cooking, doing chores, producing children, because it's unfair for another woman, a human being, to fit into those demands and still have a career. So you need to be honest, and it's okay to be honest with yourself. If you want a housewife, you have to equip yourself and ready your mind that you are gonna work yourself out. But if that's what makes you happy, be up to
So
up
there
to
has
the game.
to be a deliberate conversation, first of all, with yourself. And after yourself, with the person that you are planning to settle with. You need to have a deliberate conversation. What is the setup in our house going to be? Is it going to be a traditional marriage? A traditional marriage is where, things are set, well defined, in the sense that the man sustains the home throughout, does everything in terms of upkeep of the family, feeding of the family and everything else, and the wife runs the home, the wife manages the home. Traditional setup, we can go into details.
So you and I prepare the meals.
Yes, we can go into certain details that, I mean, most of you married people, you know what you were taught when you were trained, are things that would be expected traditionally for a wife and for a husband, what is expected. Or you can choose to be a contemporary couple. A contemporary couple where you are not going to pay so much attention to certain nitty-gritties of tradition. We are not saying that tradition is bad. Don't misquote.
Tradition is good, actually.
And by being contemporary, we are not saying that you are going to get rid of everything traditional. There are certain things that are important that are going to fit into the traditional setup of a marriage. But what we are saying is,
actually, tradition is very balanced.
Yes.
Even if a lot of people think that people who live traditionally are not even romantic. But if you have really been cultured, it has its own style that it incorporates. So it creates these traditions of this has to be done, this should be done by the husband, this should be done by the wife. But when you really look at it, it's not empty. It's forcing you to have time together. So it looks like it's a rule, this should be done, but in the process of following that rule, there is intimacy. In the process of following this rule, there is care for one another. In the process of following this rule, there is responsibility. Couples that actually live traditionally do not have the common challenge of having lazy men. This generation has lazy men, not lazy women. when I'm trying to be fair, not because I'm a woman, but I'm trying to be helpful, because now we have a trend of young men who are surviving off of marrying working women.
The downside of the contemporary setup.
That is the downside of the contemporary setup. You're very right.
Yes, irresponsible husbands.
Irresponsible, good-looking men.
Okay, yeah. So can't provide.
Yeah.
Can't do anything. The wife wakes up in the morning, and she goes for work, and she comes back.
They are too smart to do an embarrassing job.
She has to do the chores and everything. So this is what we are saying, that you have to decide and discuss, because you cannot be a tradition demanding man and
if you can't
want to marry a contemporary woman.
Yeah, no.
Okay, it's not going to work. That's where conflicts are coming from. That's where problem. And you see, the thing is, these things we are discussing, number one, they are things that are not obvious, and
because
they are
people
things
are scared
that
to talk
when
about
they become
them.
obvious in a marriage, they are scary to talk about. They are scary to discuss. Okay, they are scary. No one wants to talk about them. No one wants to discuss them, and so we hide, we shy away from them. So you cannot be a tradition demanding man and want a contemporary wife in a contemporary marriage and a contemporary setup. And I remember, babe, you did a teaching some time back when you were talking about preparing for marriage. You spoke of, the preparation of marriage, the counselors that come to teach the woman. We have a problem where they teach this woman all the traditional stuff and the traditional setup of a marriage, and yet this is a contemporary woman living in a contemporary world who's marrying a contemporary guy, but is later on expecting the traditional aspect. But looking at the contemporary setup
what
and
they
everything,
were taught is irrelevant.
you find that the demands cannot allow certain aspects of tradition to be regarded, to be respected, to be followed, and to be implemented.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think let's give some realistic examples, because some people are not like that, so they wouldn't understand what this means.
Yes.
In a traditional setting, I'll talk about things that can be talked about on air like this, yeah? With all the decency and modesty due. In a traditional setting, men that are very traditional, in our culture, for example, they want food to be cooked specifically by the wife. Even in a contemporary home, I would rather cook for my own husband. It's an act of love. But traditional men would demand that at all costs, regardless of the situation. They don't want you to order.
Yeah.
Can you imagine I have an 8 hours job, Monday to Friday, a full-time job of 40 hours a week job. And every lunch hour I have to come. They don't want to order food. They don't want me to do tinned beans, because there's a way that we cook it traditionally. They want me to cook beans on the stove or on the brazier. And then they want our traditional ifsashi. They don't want clothes washed in a washing machine because the detail, or if there's a maid elai katak fiandi. That sounds very small, and a lot of men are going to say, she's the one who's supposed to wash. Yeah, she should wash, and we gladly do that. But there are situations that make that not possible every time.
Yeah.
So once in a while, there's a maid who does something that would be my job. If you want a contemporary wife, that's the downside, because she's busy the whole day. She's leaving the house at 7 together with you, coming back at 5 together with you. Who did the cooking in the afternoon?
Yeah.
Was the maid. Or the food was ordered. But there are men who never want to go to a restaurant. They don't want a maid touching anything. Those little things, this is what happens. If you keep them, you both come back at 5, and you are both tired, the husband can relax, sit in front of the TV, listen to the news. This woman is exhausted. And children are not going to leave the mom just because, she was working all day. Now she has to deal with the drama of the kids, and then start washing to iron for you and for her for tomorrow and for the kids. And then now start cooking and then now take care of herself, and now this woman will come and sit on the couch and start snoring, and tomorrow you'll be complaining she has no time for my sexual needs because she just lays there like, look, these are the typical examples of what we're talking about. So if you want a working class woman, you want to live the contemporary way. You want a woman that's flashy, or she drives, or she makes money, or she's a 6-figure woman. You have to accept some of these things.
Yes.
Things like, having a maid in the house.
Yes.
Or sometimes she's going to buy tinned beans and add sauce and what. You know, these are the things that we're not talking about. But these are the things that are bringing conflict in the home. So some women are very loud. They'll quarrel with their husbands over this. Others, they are introverts. They'll die inside. But a person who feels abused cannot love you the same.
Yeah.
That's where 3-4 months down the line, you start hearing the question, when we started, we were romantic.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens to our marriage. Me, I haven't changed, but the marriage has changed. It's because the dynamics are unfair to one and favorable to the other. The same way, there are women who they want a contemporary guy, but they want to remain traditional. They want to stay home, do nothing, just be princess, and just cook and watch TV. They can't do business. They can't do a job. A small job comes along. They are too beautiful, too smart to do this job. But they have a husband who they want to pay for a maid. If you want to be a traditional wife, you don't need a maid. You stay home the whole day. What are you doing?
What is a maid for?
What is a maid for? That's a traditional wife. You stay home, you do the cooking, you do the sweeping, take care of the children, do the chores, because that's the only way you're contributing to this man. It's pointless for you to stay home, wants to be a traditional wife whose hair should be done by the husband, whose clothes must be bought by the husband, but then stay home and have a maid. Darling. Really? So this man is paying for the house bills and paying for the chores. Do you see how unfair it is? And very soon, this man will start to feel used. They'll begin to look at you as a liability. No matter how beautiful you are, this is where you see men who move from very beautiful women to some of the scruffy looking maids we laugh about. But that's where their heart has gone. Because when there is abuse, you can't see the beauty. You can't see the beauty. So as much as there are men who are abusive in these settings, there are also women who are abusive. You cannot be a traditional wife who does not want to do the cooking and the washing. You want to stay home, but you want your husband to pay for the maid. So what is your contribution to this marriage? Just your body, that's it.
So,
these are the dynamics.
So there has to be a serious conversation within yourself and together as a couple. Either before you get married or when you get married. And the newly married, you need to discuss these things. What kind of a marriage setup are you going for? Okay? And this now brings us to the second point, okay, that we want to talk about. That a modern day couple must seriously think about a husband who is being helpful at home. Okay. Now, there are many husbands who are doing a great job out there and everything. But suffice to say that as we are talking also, we talked about the variation in that you have a husband married to a modern, contemporary woman setup of a home that is demanding tradition. So this is now the traditional setup where we talked about where there's one sole provider. Anyway, look, there are things that you might be doing in your life that can sustain the whole family, okay? But I want to assure you that that is a small tier in society. The larger tier, we are in this group where one single income cannot sustain.
But babe, do you also see the income can be there from the man? These are the dynamics of today. Like we said, in the traditional setting, he had a farm. It's his. He stayed on traditional land. The hunting, the animals were there. God provided, fish. But in today's world, when you have a traditional setting, you have a husband who has a job. Jobs are not a birthright. I can have a job, or my husband can have a job. He's had jobs, and sometimes his jobs have finished.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe for a month, because this conversation has to be helpful and realistic. We are just going to be open and
Businesses
realistic.
that have
So he's
put
had
in all the money and it
yeah.
hasn't worked out.
So he's had a job before, a very good paying job. It was taking care of us. Job finished. 3 months, he was unable to get another one. In that time, if I was not working, if this was just a traditional setting of me, I stay home and be beautiful and just be taken care of. Who was going to pay the rent? Because at that point, we didn't have a house. It wasn't like lately when we've had our own house. Who was going to pay the rent? So, but because I was working, that 3 months I took care of the home without disrespecting him, because life has happened. That is the world we are in. Jobs finish.
And yes.
You
and
change
so
jobs.
This is where now this point comes in. In that time that, she has to come in, I now have to be helpful at home as a husband.
Because now roles are being...
Yes.
We have to survive.
Okay. So the idea that where we're coming from, where a husband cannot or should not at all do
Touch a
house,
baby, touch a plate.
We just have to break those norms. Young people that have who have just gotten married, new marriages, you have to break that norm, because you see, you need to create an environment where there is this exchange of roles, where there is this fluidity in handling and managing the affairs of the family.
Yeah.
We are talking about we are living in a world where things can change at any time. Things can go upside down anytime.
So in fact, for example, you were running a good business with gadgets. There was a time when we had a terrible break-in in our marriage. I think that was like, we were 7 years married then.
Yeah.
We had worked very hard. He's good with gadgets, and business was working for him at that point. And we moved to a new big house, and we were happy. It was a big stage.
Yeah.
We were feeling life. And on a Sunday we go to church, and we come back, and thieves have swept through our home because we had just moved with all the gadgets and everything. Investments gone. It was worth a lot of money. We were so shattered, so broken. They had swept through. These are guys, they knew our car. So we passed, they know we've left, and they are watching when we are coming back. And he lost everything. So at that point, he was not working because he was doing this business and it was bringing in good money. And we had just moved to a big house that we had just paid 2 months. And then all of a sudden, he's as good as jobless because his business is taken away. In the time that he's going to rebuild that business and the money to rebuild, what's going to happen if you as a wife, you don't contribute anything, you just sit there waiting to be taken care of, because that's a traditional setting.
Yeah. So we are on the point, a husband, you have to learn to be helpful at home. Chores, okay? This one, you just have to break the norm. You can't just work and wait for breakfast. Yeah, once in a while you'll be treated like that, but because of the modern day setups, it pushes us. Number one, what you are doing when you are doing that, number one, you are helping your wife, who is probably helping out with house needs, number one. Number two, you are laying a good example for your children, because believe you me, listen, where we are going, there will be no this thing of the man has to do this, the woman has to do this, plates and what. We are look at your children, look at the Gen Z, look at how they are growing up. They are not growing up. So you need to lay down a good example as a man for your children. They need to grow up responsible. For boys, more especially, as a husband, you need to lay down a good example as a husband for your boys, for your children, that this is how it is supposed to be. You cannot leave everything for one person because of the agenda. You need to be able to create that. Now, as we're talking about this, it overlapped with our third point. The third point is that a wife in the modern day society arrangement and setup, a wife must be an income earner. You need to seriously think, discuss, and talk about that. A wife has to be an income earner. You really, like she has pointed out, number one, jobs finishes, businesses finishes. Okay, what happens that we have seen families crumble because one person's income was taken away, the only earner in the house. It should not be the case.
You know, even without jobs, marriage is for better, for worse. What happens if your husband suffers a stroke just now? Because these are the issues that we have to deal with sometimes as pastors. So this man, I've seen couples where the man was ably providing and taking care of his wife and family perfectly, because there are men who are able to provide like that, depending on the kind of job or whether their wealth is inherited or built. Those are dynamics we need to consider as well. There are men who are working hard from the scratch because they are the first people with wealth in their lineage. Then there are our blessed brothers and lucky ones that they are also inheriting something. So you cannot compare what these two men can do. One of them can afford to be a traditional husband and just want a wife that is just there to take care of him. That's all. And he doesn't need her to do anything. I've seen men that tell a woman, I don't want your money in this house. That money is yours. Because he's able. And it's okay. If it works for the two of you, that's okay. What we are trying to say is, don't let pressure from outside ruin your marriage because someone is determining what a wife should be, what a husband should be, when you know the dynamics are different inside.
What we are talking about applies to the 99% of us. Listen, I talked about world economics. Right now, we are living in the economies where all over in the world, one individual income is meant, when you look at it world over, one individual basic income is meant to only sustain that one individual. Actually sustain, not even invest.
By the month end, he'll still be broke.
It is just sustain. Most of that. It is economics. It is economics, because when they just begin, when companies or businesses or government just begins to pay you anyhow, it will cause inflation. Inflation is going to crash economies. When economies crashes, there will be chaos. It has to be controlled. Everything has to be managed, has to be regulated. You are not being paid that salary because that's all they can pay you.
No, it's also to keep you working for them.
Everything is managed and staged properly so that things can continue to be balanced. And of course, like someone said, no one employs you for you to become rich. So the truth is, a basic salary of one individual, most of us in the 99% category, we are in a place where our earnings cannot do the wonders of saying, hey, I don't need your money here. Okay? So if that happens, well and good. But even in the case that happens,
being able to be independent,
still, a woman in a modern day
where necessary
has to be an income earner. We have seen those that were told, I don't need your money. Okay, we have a late friend of mine. He was doing literally everything. He died young. He died all of a sudden. He just dropped and died.
And the life of the family changed in 2 weeks.
The chaos of the wife found herself in, and their little daughter, they just had one child. The chaos they found themselves in was heartbreaking. Why? Because, there's this earner, this breadwinner, this provider, so everything is okay. Listen, life happens. Okay? In a modern day family setup, a modern day marriage, a wife must seriously consider to be an income
do something. Even if you are blessed enough to marry into the home of a man that gives you money, that's not just money for wigs. That's not just money for nails. Wake up. I feel heartbroken sometimes when I see these women that, they are lucky. The man starts giving out money, and all they do is social media flaunting. Then the moment the man walks away, their life comes down to zero.
Yeah.
I've personally spoken to women that I encouraged to save, but because I looked like I have less than them, it looked like it was jealous. You don't know what you're talking about. Me, I'm married. Eventually, they're the ones that came back for help. I don't know if you've seen those situations. When and if you marry a man that's able, as a woman, have the wisdom to know saving.
Yeah.
Have the wisdom to know running a business, not because your husband needs the money, but because you need to be able to be an individual when life happens. You see, this is life. Nobody wants to talk about death, but people's spouses die and the children remain. What happens? What happens? Because people die, but life has to go on.
Yes.
You know, there's also where people don't die. Unfortunately, I've seen so many instances where a man has suffered stroke and he's had to be taken care of literally by the wife and children for years.
Yeah.
Years.
And now this is a wife who has no skill.
Who
She
has
doesn't
no
know
skill,
how to
just
go to
looking beautiful.
She doesn't know how to play, how the games play in the marketplace, how she can go about to make money. She knows nothing. Okay?
So we need to really think about that. Now, don't get us wrong. What we are trying to say, we're not trying to say 50-50, where a man should now be the one sweeping the house. A man should be the one cooking, because I'm also cooking. And a woman should bring 50-50 to the house money. No. There's order. There's a reason. Even when I like to make this comment, when we sinned in the Garden of Eden as humanity, look at the way God cursed us. He said to the woman, I will increase your pain in labor. There's a home training and raising children that is expected of you, and that is just naturally God-given, that a man cannot do. There are men who are very good, excellent fathers. I saw Bishop Ngwira watching. Oh, that's a dad and a half. I just love how he's a dad. I had a very good dad growing up. My dad, Reverend Hadis Nyangwe, was such a warmly father for young girls. And even up to now, he's a pillar. But there is a place of a mother that is just so natural. I believe it's God-given. There's a reason our case went that way. And then for the men, God said, you will sweat. You will sweat to provide. Even God has put a kind of order. It's a case, but there's a kind of order there.
Yes.
So what we are saying is, as a woman, be able to contribute. We're not saying let it be 50-50, no.
Yeah.
But be able to contribute, because otherwise we'll be living envying our neighbors. We see women who want to be driving big cars, have houses on rent, but they're expecting one man to do this. Darling, before you know it, you'll be bewidowed.
Yeah.
This man will drop and die out of a stroke, out of BP, out of stress. Be considerate. If you love him, you'll be able to think for his health.
Yes.
He is working. The work may not always remember, but his body does not forget. He's deteriorating. Be kind to him. That's what love means. If and when you are able, contribute to the building of a house. It breaks my heart to see women who work, they earn money and say, Ishandi Shandi, this is my money. And watch their husband suffer, build a house alone. Then she wants to go and live in there and start making demands. Guys, let's be real. Are we in love, or are we in it for a sponsorship?
That which you
what
have
is
brought
this?
leads us to our fourth point now, which is a touchy and sensitive one. Putting money together.
Oh,
Okay.
couples fight.
The issue of his money, our money, her money, her money. Okay. As a modern day couple, you need to be deliberate and talk about that deliberately. Not beating about the bush, not going around it, because actually some of the conflicts that marriages are going through, it is not the things that they are fighting about. The actual thing they are fighting about, actually, it's these things.
Not some,
Issues of
actually
money.
most.
of them.
Money is a big problem
The
in
issue
marriage.
is money, but everyone wants to. Now, let me tell you, as a man, I'll tell you this, Beth. As a man, I'll tell you this, and I know most
I'm
men,
listening.
they might not come out and talk about it,
I'm
but
listening.
and agree publicly, but believe you me, this is the truth. Most men today would rather have their wives help out in terms of bringing in income.
Yeah.
But because of, number one, the stigma of tradition has built African men, actually men world over, that you are the sole provider of the house. Some men refusing their women to go and work, and it is out of the fear of stigma, and some of them it is pride.
Sometimes the women also, there are also women who are arrogant. Once they give, they want to call the shots, they forget they are the ones to submit.
I was coming there. The third thing is the fear of disrespect. Very few women are able to make a contribution in a home and hold their position. So as a man, I begin to think, okay, instead of me being insulted and being disrespected,
let me kill myself.
Keep your money. Let me kill myself with my pride and dignity.
Oh boy. Okay.
So in no time, there is stress, there is BP, there is water. That's, you find that a man's life has got a shorter lifespan. Why? Because of these things. Now, the issue of putting money together. Listen, the truth is this: whether you are a man or a woman, wherever you are not adding value, sooner or later you will be disrespected.
Say that again.
Wherever you are not adding value, whether man or woman, wherever you are not adding value, sooner or later you'll be disrespected.
I heard a story of a man who bought a car. And you know the traditional girls of, no, me, my boyfriend drives and what, and she was so excited and bragging about it. And so she gets married to this man. This man had a car, and one of these days because she was learning to drive from him, one of these days the guy parks the car and she goes and jumps into the car and starts to drive out, and the man comes out and says, leave that car of mine, you monkey. Even your father didn't have one. You want to come and be jumping on mine. You found that car. That car is not our car. It's my car. But do you see the disrespect in there? So you are excited for wealth that is coming one-sided.
So that sounds
you have
funny.
No contribution to.
That sounds funny and simple, but the truth is,
he feels like it's his. It's not ours.
There are many women out there that are suffering at the hands of men.
Yeah.
Disrespect, extramarital affair. The man feels like he can do anything for one simple reason: I keep all of you here. You are my dependents.
The sad story. Speaking as a woman now, the sad story, and a lot of us women know, but sometimes we are detached from reality. Most of the women that we see flaunting money is not because their husbands love them. It's because these men have developed a sense of entitlement. There are women who are cheated on every day, beaten all the time, and every time sorry with money.
Yes.
And they are not living, not because they are loved. They are staying there just because they know they need the money. But that money for what? A husband has got extramarital affairs all over. But she knows if she leaves, even Shima will not be found. Food will not be found. They are being beaten, but they are just sat there for the sake of the name they are married and the fact that he's the one who buys the food at the month end. And a lot of women know these stories. So, and sometimes the problem with our younger sisters who are coming up, you are trying to offer the wisdom and the counseling, but they are not ready to listen because, like the Bembas say, ingando shikalamo. Umbwa mutenge, kula munafenga bafu manamoto kaba madam badi dwalama STIs, batalala panshapa. Badi dwale findu abalume nga bakwata omwana lero munganda 1 week umbi afyarwa kumbi 3 days later. Na umbi afyarwa kumbi 2 weeks later. Emma lives that people are living. But why would you live your life, my sister, like that? What kind of disrespect is that? Where does it leave your self-esteem? Where does it leave your dignity as a human being? But all for money. You lose your esteem and your worth. But this is what happens when you are not able to take care of yourself because you are too dependent.
Yes.
So whereas you need to earn to contribute to the marriage, you also need to earn for your own dignity. Like he said, where you are not contributing, you will soon be disrespected because you are a liability there. You are a burden. At that point, you are not just your husband's wife. You are your husband's dependent. Together with all the nephews he keeps. You are the same. The difference is you live in the bedroom.
You are not a helper anymore. Okay.
You are not.
You have become a burden. You have become a dependent.
And you see, that's God's definition of a wife, a helper. Now, a helper to what? To eat his money? A helper for him to get more stress? And that's where a lot of women are missing it.
Yes.
We have become a burden and a dependent.
So we have to emphasize that here we are not talking about women become providers, because that is the other extreme. There's something you mentioned at the beginning, that we are a generation where we are seeing a lot of irresponsible husbands.
Yeah.
That is the other. Now, listen, as a man, don't make the mistake, okay? Don't make the mistake that because your wife is earning, then you become a lazy bone.
How do you lead people that are feeding you?
Listen,
crazy.
At that moment you have seized, you have lost your place and your position
as a head.
And here's the truth. Any man who is being provided for when he should be providing, any man who is being provided for when he should be providing, he becomes useless.
It rids him of something, yeah, because it's purpose.
He becomes literally
it's leadership,
like,
so
yes, he becomes useless, like in the sense of useless.
No, and
to the point that he becomes a problem. So we have seen this a lot. We have seen men who just stay at home. The wife goes to work and everything, and he forces her to get a loan and buy a car, which she never drives. He's the one driving
and wearing expensive
suits. And on top of that, he goes to cheat on her. And on top of that, he doesn't do any house chores when she goes for work, and he does.
He's waiting for
nothing.
her to come and
cook.
And
we have a lot of such people, a lot of such young people out there, young husbands out there, which is wrong. Listen, it is just natural. He who provides has the authority. Don't accuse women that no, when they start providing, no, it is just nature of life. He who provides has the authority, has the say. I can't be bringing money and you want me to keep quiet. I'm feeding you.
So I think in an instance where life has happened, we as women are trained, we have to remind ourselves, this is my husband. I'm giving him my money, not because he's irresponsible, but because life has happened to him. But that can only be for so long.
Yes.
You can't
there
be
has
married
to be
6
a limit.
years.
There
you
has
drive
to
cars
be,
that your wife buys.
There has to be
and
a limit. There has to be an agreement.
There has to be
you need to talk that, look, this is what is happening. Maybe I've lost my job. I've lost my business. As you are pushing. But you see, it is also going to show as you are pushing. Listen, even when you are pushing as a man, this is what I've always said. Listen, even when, for the most time in our marriage, we want to be practical and helpful. For the most time in our marriage, my wife is the one who has had a
stable job,
where she is getting paid monthly. But you see, as a man, I have made sure that at least to a point that at some point when I come in, at least it has to cover probably half of her year's salary.
Half of the
okay? So when I come in with a bang. Okay? So you just have to stretch yourself as a man. There has to be a balance. So don't give up your responsibility because your wife has a good job, she's earning enough money.
Or she's earning more than you. Yeah. You see the thing, speaking as a woman, when we are getting married, you see how different we are as women. There are women who marry money. They don't marry a man.
Yeah.
They are always hunting men who already have. Then there's those of us who just marry for love. We married our friend. We started from the scratch.
Yes.
What we saw was not the money, but what we saw was the attitude.
Yes.
The commitment.
Actually, can I interrupt?
The willingness to work.
This is more actually targeted to those that are married or are marrying to men who are just starting. This is 100% yours. You can continue. This is 100%. This applies in every sense to those of you that are marrying men that are starting.
You are marrying for love. Even your family is laughing. Your friends are laughing. Why did you pick this man? But you just know you love him and you've married him for love. You are going to a house that's not so flashy. You know, compound. And it's not the flashiest of beginnings, but you love him. Sometimes men, listen to me as a woman speaking for women, sometimes we love the attitude. We love commitment. You don't all have to work in the bank. You don't all have to be doctors and have high-paying jobs. Sometimes a man who's just committed enough nangukuya imbo muganda, just do a casual work, earn your own money with pride. I may be earning more than you, but that money that you have earned yourself out of your hard work, even if I earn more than you, whatever you do for me, out of what you have, I will value. There's a difference between being given out of abundance and being given out of sacrifice. Sometimes we'll have more than the man.
Yeah.
But if the man is hardworking and he is earning, ala impia nanguwa imbili omuganda, tashkwata pole bwati shamganda.
Yeah.
Ishakutamina ama bloko.
No.
Money is money. Whether you did a casual job or you work in the office, we respect a man who works hard. A man with hard nails, because he's a mechanic. His fingers are not even soft, but he's working hard. We respect that hustle. My husband used to repair. These are the things we don't say, but in order to be helpful, we have to be practical and realistic. When I married my husband, he didn't even have a big business. When we talk about the gadget business that came up, it came with time.
Later. Yeah.
But when I married him, we had nothing. We didn't even have these dates of let's go to Nando's, let's go to Hungry Lion. As our dating was that when you take a walk in, baby, where was that? Those long gravel roads.
In very weird places.
A very long
Just
walk,
take a walk in a road.
Eating Max Kunot ice cream.
Up to now, we are now learning how to go to these special
ones.
nice places.
So we did that kind of dating where you are broke, but you love each other. You don't have the money to go out, but you just have this umbrella in the sun, these long gravel walks along these poor line roads. You take a long walk and chat and talk about everything. But I loved the attitude. I knew this guy is almost my age. There were people that were more promising, but I chose the attitude. I chose the hard work, the vision. I honored the fact that sometimes I actually had more, because at the time, anyway, let's be real. At the time, I came from a more financially stable place than he was when we met. So I was more, because I was coming from a family that was more stable financially than him at that point. Sometimes I actually had more. But to have a man give me the little that I can actually afford, but he's giving me out of sacrifice, out of love, I know he has worked hard for this. And when we began our marriage, this man did not have a high pricey job, because I've had women who write me messages, "You are a very lucky woman of God. The way your husband takes care of you, you know, the way he's proud of you, he's buying you nice things, you wouldn't understand. Me, my husband, this, that. You pray for me. I wish I married a man like yours." But darling, somebody has to be realistic with you. When I married my husband, he did not have a pricey job. I chose to honor him based on the man he was, the vision he had, the attitude he had, how he was willing to work hard. This man used to repair phones, not laptops. Phones. And we got married and into our house.
We used to go in Katondo.
Yes,
if you know Katondo streets,
boys.
And you know all those places where weird people are found. We used to go there and find our place and make a little
I'll
money.
break my phone and he'll be busy putting it together, sellotape where and where and where. This man has fought from the scratch. I'm just trying to be realistic, because when sometimes you give advice about marriage and you talk about these things, people look at you from where you are now and they think, you can say that because you guys don't know what we are going through. Darling, we've been there. We've been there. If we post certain pictures here, you will cry for us, not the nice ones we post. Maybe we should do some of the phases of our lives.
I was talking about
So a man should work before you supersede me. A man should work. My brother work. Ngawala imbomganda. It earns you respect. Just your hard work will earn you respect. Nganika peace work nangu aniaze katuishi school teacher helper paka preschool bale kupela ko 750 ichefye go and earn. Your wife will respect you for that. Then you can't what it's too low paying. Then you sit there and you're a broke man who's eating a woman's money. There's no dignity in that.
Yeah.
Do something.
Do something. So this is what we are talking about. As a wife, you need to be an income earner at some level. Even if you are bringing, let me talk about our Zambian setup. Even if you are bringing just 1,000, 500, it will make a difference. Let him refuse it if he wants to say, no, keep your money, use it for your own things. Let him refuse if he wants, but make yourself useful.
Make yourself useful,
Do not make your, and husband, if your wife is industrious, don't take advantage of it and become a lazy bone who just does nothing and just wait on your wife for everything. Pastor Mike Asonde says, you are really a great example for what you are saying. Thank you for being a perfect example and inspiration. Thank you very much, Pastor Mike. You know where we've come from. And this, we are speaking from, not from just, ideas. We are speaking from what we have experienced, what we have learned, what we have dealt with, talking to people, talking to different couples.
And things that we've been through ourselves.
So if we were to exhaust this would be a very long live broadcast.
But next week, can we come again and talk about specifically how we can use the options that we have for how we can use our money or how we can divide our money in the home? Because when we say bring everything together, what is yours is mine, sometimes there are misunderstandings on that. But next week, can we'll have this date and just talk about how to use finances together? There are many dynamics to that. And what does it mean? And what are the available options? These are discussions that people don't pay attention to until they are married. And they don't like each other anymore because they've started to see each other as lazy, as a user, as ababa lumena abambelesha abanjingidila or uyu mwana kashi alenchusha afye ichupo. You see comments like marriage is a scam. Where do you think that is coming from? It is from topics like this that are unaddressed. So next week, please make a date with us. Let's come and discuss the 3 options we have of how we can use
And people
money.
don't want to talk about these things. That's why we want to talk about them. So today we talked about, number 1, decide your marriage arrangement. Traditional, contemporary, or self-defined. Define yourselves to say this is how we are going to live our marriage.
And if you decide to be traditional, be traditional.
Yes.
And be faithful to the traditional setting you pick.
And what you agree, let
honor
it be
it.
The both of you, not one-sided.
And don't let a marriage favor one person. Marriage is not about the husband. Marriage is not about the wife. Marriage is about the both of you. If you choose the traditional way, it's okay. It is a perfect way as long as it is working for you, as long as it is not selfish.
Yes.
If you choose the contemporary way, the same way, marriage is not about any one of you, it's about the both of you. It's not about what you get from there, it's about what you contribute.
What you contribute.
To
and
it.
Secondly, we talked about in a modern day marriage, a husband has to be helpful at home. Okay, basic things, house chores. We are not saying now become, divide 50-50. No, we are saying that
you should know that it's my primary duty.
Yes.
And when he does help you, be grateful. Don't develop a sense of entitlement because it is also abuse.
Yes.
Let him feel like the man he is. But in being a man, it doesn't mean be abusive. For example, abakashina abakwata omwana fili adila the first 1 week. Bali kano kwikata omwana. Iwa mwana obyale edila. No, this is our child. Be involved. The same way the husband is coming in to help the wife, you also as a wife, help him.
Yes.
Don't let him burn out until he develops BP while you are looking
that
beautiful.
We talked about that a wife, you have to seriously consider being an income earner. Okay, you have to consider bringing something. And number 4, where we are going to conclude and start from and talk about the solutions next week. Number 4, we talked about putting money together. Talk money. Talk about the money. Okay, talk about
Don't die
money.
in silence.
Talk about money.
Ask about the pay slip, darling.
Please, as a modern day couple, I repeat, talk about the money. Talk about the money. Talk about it. It's an uncomfortable discussion. You know, these days talking about money is like talking about money in church.
Yeah. Nobody wants to talk about it directly.
Talk about it directly. You know, and talk about money.
But that's what's getting people angry.
Talk about money. If you don't like the way you are you are spending each person's money, your money as a husband, your money as a wife, talk about it.
Talk about it. Yeah.
Talk about it.
Because otherwise the children balachudila mwabana balepokelela fyo tomasele pushi imbwa shani tabeshi yoko file fuma but diashi diama pay slip.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
Nobody wants to touch nobody.
The Lord richly bless you. We are ending here for today. Catch us again next week. Please, if there are any questions, prepare them for next week. We'll have a discussion this coming week, and just let's interact in the comment section there. Yeah. And so good to see Pastor Banda. Dumisani, thank you for coming in. Loliwe, Pastor Mike Sonde,
Gwendolyn,
thank you all of you. Miriam Chama, thank you. Monica Banda, thank you.
Auntie Nongelo Vasi, Mrs. Pastor Mshoke Benzo, thank you, neighbors. Susan Kampamba, thank you very much. Very dear lady. Loiwe Tembo Katongo, thank you, and thank you for inviting. Monica Banda, thank you, darling. Miriam Chama, always grateful, darling. Thank you very much. And as we conclude, I would like to say, for those of us that are married and we are struggling, there are no perfect marriages out there.
Yeah.
Even, you know, sometimes we are prompted to have conversations like this and just be real, because this generation has too many role models that are portraying fakeness. People that show themselves as perfect. So because they look like role models, like their social media influencers, they give people pressure, and people look at their lives and think, if we life here, if you are nobody, darling, there's no perfect marriage.
Yeah.
It's just two people that love each other, want to better each other and better themselves, and are deliberate. We all have our conflicts. It's the way you resolve them. It's not the conflicts. It's the way you resolve them. We all have our lowest points. We don't always look like this. Sometimes we are finished. We go through pain. We hold each other down. Sometimes we have not had the best of meals. Sometimes you see us in those big cars that you see us in, and there are times when we've walked, we have not been fancy. Sometimes my husband will spoil me like that. You see all these big phones and what. But darling, there are times when he's not able to provide. So don't be under the pressure and the deception that other marriages are working and other people are more blessed than you. I want to say, whatever the state of your marriage, there is hope. You can just learn certain little things, they may help. If you are not married, avoid certain mistakes by learning. Don't be deceived by social media influence, living a fake life. Listen to reality, listen to people who are being real,
when you mention
you'll get the help.
Media, my last counsel is talk to right people, listen to right people about marriage. There is a lot of things being talked about out there by people who are frustrated, people who are disappointed and all that. But listen, here's my counsel and my advice. Talk to the right people.
And marriage is not a scam. Marriage is a blessing. Just find the right person and have the right attitude.
Yes. So the Lord richly bless you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank and we bless you today for the conversations we've had. We pray that you help us as we look and build this lovely institution, Lord, that you have given us the opportunity to be in. We pray for everyone that watched and listened, that you may richly bless them. In the wonderful name of our Lord Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So the Lord bless you. Shalom.
See you next week. Have a good night.